everyone, it's Megan. So I have a couple more points that I want to make around this idea of your work having value. Hopefully I can make them coherently. I'm still a little bit under the weather, so please bear with me. But I do have a few more things that I want to talk about. So the first one is that I really want to clarify what I mean when I say your work has value. So obviously, if you guys know me, you know what I talk about. I talk about the importance of profit, and that goes into pricing your work appropriately. So I think when some people hear me say your work has value, what they ultimately go to is I'm telling everyone they should raise their prices, that they should charge more. And while I often tell people that because it's often true, when I say your work has value, what I'm actually talking about is like intrinsic value, value to the world, value that has nothing to do with how much something costs. And so when I say your work has value, what I mean is that it's a worthwhile pursuit that brings good things into people's lives. I think this is so important, and I talk about this idea that your work has value because so many artists and makers, especially when the world gets shitty, so many artists and makers want to quit. They feel like they have to go do something that's more noble or more valuable, like they should become a doctor or run for office or, join the Peace Corps, whatever it is. And all of those things are completely valuable, but you know what? So is making art, so is making craft. Those things are important too. They add so much value to our world. They add beauty, they add joy, they add emotion, they add feeling, they add experience. All of those things are really important. So when I say that your work has value, what I mean is that pursuing art is not frivolous, it's not pointless, it has value that way. And that is completely different than saying you need to raise your prices. Now, that said, what I have found is that if you do not understand that your work has value to the world, if you think it is frivolous or shallow or pointless, then you are going to have a hard time charging what you need to charge to have a successful business because you don't see the correlation, right? You think what you do is shallow, frivolous, pointless. And so even if you're hearing me say, hey, you need to raise your prices, it's not computing in your head because you don't think what you do has value. So there is absolutely a relationship, but when I say that your work has value, that's because ultimately at the end of the day, I don't want you to quit, I don't want you to give up, I want you to keep making your work because I know that it adds something really important to the world. Now, adding on to that, I also want to add that your work has value beyond the material costs and even beyond the labor costs that go into it. Your work has value beyond those things. And I bring this up because I got an email from someone and she kind of questioned how, as someone making jewelry, how she can compete with, a lower price brand that's made overseas, that's maybe cheaper materials like silver plated versus actual silver, the labor costs are lower, and she's saying, customers often compare on price, and how is she supposed to compete on that? Well, first of all, you can't compete on price, so there is literally no point in even trying. So your job as the marketer of your art, as the marketer of your craft, your job is to help your customers see the value in your work. And here's the thing, that value is not tied up in the material costs. Your job is not to say, well, look, I use real nice actual silver while they use silver plate, and that's not your job. Your job is to help the customer see all of those intrinsic values that they get from your work. Your job is to help them see the experience that they're going to get, the confidence that they're going to feel, the joy that it brings them, the way it makes them feel beautiful. Whatever it is, your job is to help them see that value. And your job is also to help them see how your work is a unique, singular voice in the world. Because the reality is that people pay more for that too, right? If they're buying something mass-produced and cheap, it's because they want something that's like everything else. But if they're behind your art and your craft, it's because they're looking for differentiation. And part of that differentiation is your creative vision as an artist. That's actually one of the reasons that I've really been pushing this idea of end studio shame. I know I haven't talked about end studio shame in like 2 whole videos, or I haven't really been focusing on much of my last couple of posts, but it's still important to this discussion of value because part of your value as an artist or a maker is that you are a creative with a singular vision. And if we aren't communicating that because we feel shame for how messy our studio is, then we're missing out an opportunity to connect to your customer. Because you know what? Your customer doesn't just buy your product, they buy you. You are a part of your business, you are a part of your brand, you are a part of the thing that makes your work valuable because you have a unique and singular vision as an artist, as a creative, as a maker, however you want to define yourself. You have a vision and people buy into it. I am deluding myself if I think that the reason that some of you don't buy my jewelry is because you want to feel connected to me as an artist and a maker. That is absolutely why people buy your products. Yes, they might like the aesthetic. Yes, they might like the way it makes them feel. But they also are buying you. That is part of the package because otherwise, you're right, they can go buy the mass-produced thing. They don't need your unique singular vision. So part of your job is to help them see that there's value in something that's created from somebody's vision and skill and passion. There's value to that transfers onto them as the wearer, as the owner, whether it's a piece of jewelry, a piece of art in your home. There is value there as well. And that value isn't in the material cost, it's not in the labor, it's not in the technique that you think you should be talking about, but you absolutely should not be talking about because it means nothing to your customer. It's not in those things. But there is absolutely value in what you do. There's value in creating beautiful work for the world. There's value in making people feel things. Whether those things are positive, there's value in making people feel happy, but there's also value in people letting people feel their feelings. There's value in letting them be sad. There's value in letting people be angry. There's value in feeling emotion, experience. And as an artist, as a creative, that's what you do. That's where your value lies. And it's really, really important that you understand that. So when I say that your work has value, don't just take that to mean I think you should charge more. Take that to mean that I think what you're doing is really, really, really important for the world, and that's why you should keep doing it. And ultimately, that's probably why you should charge a little more, because when you make a little more, it's easier to keep doing what you're doing. But at the end of the day, when I say your work has value, I'm not just talking about the price, the monetary value. I'm actually talking about the social, the cultural, the emotional value that it brings to the world. And it absolutely does that. And until you understand that, you're always going to struggle. You're going to struggle with confidence in your business. You're going to struggle with your pricing. So that's why I'm going to keep talking about this. I'm going to keep talking about that your art has value to the world because it does. It absolutely has value to the world. It's so important. I'm going to keep reminding you of this. And I'm also going to keep reminding you of the fact that you are the artist, you are the creative visionary. That is part of the inherent value in what you do. So get in there, start embracing this idea that what you do has value, and also start sharing the fact that you are a creative with a real, true creative process. You can use that hashtag #EndStudioShame. I don't think these two conversations are disconnected, because a big part of the value of your work is that it comes from your creative vision, your creative process, and that you're bringing that into the end experience that you create for your customer. So your work really does have value. I really want you to remember that. I know, especially for those in the US, things are really stressful right now. There's a lot of really awful things happening in our country. We're feeling very stressed about the midterms. I know there's a lot of stress. So first of all, if you are in the US, don't forget to go vote, very important. But don't let that kind of stress make you feel like the work that you do as an artist or a maker is not important and that doesn't have value, because it does. The work that you do is even more important. It's so important that we have these cultural touch points, that we have beauty, that we have emotion, that we have empathy, that we have all of these things that artists and creatives bring to the world. It is so important, even more important now that we have that. So just please know that your work has value. What you do is important. Please keep sharing it with the world. Please keep putting your work out there, selling it, and just remember that it has value. So thank you guys. I'm loving having these conversations with you. So again, if you have any questions, any comments, please post them in the comments below this video. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear if there's any topics you want me to talk about, because I love making these videos for you guys. So have a great day, everyone.